So next up we have the cartoon characters tier list maker. Now, obviously, I am more of a cartoon fan than a comics fan, so this one should be interesting. Let's see who we've got on the list. For this one, oh wow, lots of characters. For this one, we have the tiers of S, A, B, C, and D, classic tier list titles. So let's go for it. They're in an interesting order. This should be fun. So Professor Collins, much like in the other tier, I would put him as he's a good character, and since we now I don't have any like stipulations on these, I suppose I can just rank them by how much I like them. I think I would put Collins in B tier. I might move him. He's a good man. He is. He doesn't really do anything wrong. Will has a problem with him just by virtue of the fact that he's her teacher and her mum's dating him, and that's awkward for her. But he hasn't actually done anything wrong. He's a good man. So I'm gonna put him in B for now. Um, yeah, I'm happy with that. Oh my gosh, Aldarn! Aldarn! Um, S tier. Screw it. S tier. I love Aldarn so much. I think he's such a good character. I wish we got to see more of him. He's just like a good man. He cares about his world. He's a good friend, but he's also like funny and he tries to like fit in with the Earth people. He starts like, your speech has like changed, Caleb. And, saying things like, these totally stone. I mean, rock. He's so funny and so sweet, and he clearly cares about the girls. And he tries, in that episode where like Drake's like yelling at the girls for making Meridian suffer, and Aldern's trying to stand up for them. Like he really cares about the Guardians, and I just love him. He's such a sweetheart. There's a reason that when I wrote an original character, I shipped him with Aldern because I was living vicariously through her because I wanted to date Aldern. I wanted him to be my green skinned boyfriend. Lillian. Lillian's probably a B tier because I feel bad for her, although she is annoying. But like, I feel for her. The same thing that I said about in the comics tier is that it's obvious that she's sad that Cornelia doesn't spend time with her, and Cornelia's more like kind of openly hostile. I would say to, well, I mean, she's hostile to her in the comics as well because like in the very first issue, she says something like "Shut up, you frog." Um, but she is like quite hostile towards Lillian because Lillian's annoying and sisters clash. That's what they do, especially when there's a big age gap and you can't really relate to each other in any way. But I think really she's a sweet girl, and when she's not around Cornelia, she tends to be quite nice. I think it's just that the two of them butt heads a lot. But I think she's a nice little girl. And I would have liked to see when she became the Heart of Earth. I would have liked, and if we got season three, I would have liked to see her do more. I would have liked to see her factor more into the plot. And then once, now that she's like actually like a magical character as well. And I would have loved to see where that would go, but we never got to find out. Sandra, D tier. Sandra's a terrible person. Like, Divide and Conquer isn't my favorite episode, but like it is so funny, and the whole thing is like I'd like to see her eat the book in the original Russian. It's so funny. It's like the Balnitsa. You said you spoke Russian. And no cashmere goats in Switzerland unless you're also from the Himalayas as well. She's awful. She's awful, and she lies to everybody and pretends to be Miss Fascinating Swiss person. And she's got a really bad accent, and she's mean to Will for no reason, and she sucks. The Tracker. I feel like BT. I'm going to put him straight down the middle because I think his design is really cool. He's definitely like the scariest looking villain in this show. Like I do not know what they were doing when they animated this guy. He's terrifying, but at the same time, because he doesn't really because he doesn't speak, which was specifically because they thought that if he didn't talk, it was scarier. It was scarier if he was like a silent character. But because of that, he has no personality. We don't know anything about him. We don't know anything about his backstory. We don't know why he exists, why he tracks people. Like he's just sort of there, and he doesn't have any story, and he can't interact with anyone other than attacking them because he has no personality. So he just stands there looking scary. So like top tier design, but like bottom tier characterization. So straight down the middle of just like B tier. Alchemy. I'm gonna give Alchemy A tier because I really like her. She's a sweetheart. She's the only person at the school who actually raised the alarm that it was concerning that Elion had been missing for like months. Months. She was the only one that turned around and was like, "Hey, I'm actually kind of concerned that no one's heard from my best friend in months, and I think maybe someone should look into that." And props for her actually standing up. And especially considering, the fact it must have taken guts for her to actually go to the principal and be like, look, I'm worried about my friend here. Like, I'm concerned and I want someone to look into it. And then having to talk to the police and getting the police involved. She's a hero. She's a hero and we love her. And I just think she's a sweet girl. Her singing is demonic. Her singing was unleashing, like, literally unleashing some kind of Cthulhu from the pits of the earth, but we can forgive her for that because she's usually good. Okay, the mage. That's a difficult one considering the mage doesn't exist. Like this character doesn't exist. She doesn't. She's not real. So I don't really know where to rank her because she is her. So um, don't really know what to do with that because the mage isn't a real character. The mage is a cover story, so she's not really anybody. Like Narissa for me is one of my favorite characters. So should the mage also be one of my favorite characters? But I don't really care about the mage because she's not a real character. Well, you know what? I'm just gonna stick her in C because she has a cool design, but she's not a real character. So Yanlin. Yanlin is obviously an S tier character. The woman is a freaking queen. She's hilarious. She's badass. She takes in a 15-year-old boy and gives him a job in her restaurant and lets him live in her basement when she's never met him before in her life, which is just incredible. Good for her. Um, she's always there to help and stand up for her granddaughter, and she will willingly teletransport all over the world to collect her missing friends. I love her. And I do think like I feel like she became like like Caleb never had a mother. And I feel like Yan Lim became like his mother. And like what a lovely woman to just like take in this teenage boy with issues from living in a war zone for his entire life and just like giving him a home and a family and a life and a job and money and food, and we love to see it. Queen Yanlin. Fathik. A tier. Vathek is the boy. Like he's such a good guy. He's such a sweetheart. And like the fact that he like runs up and like, well, he doesn't really hug Caleb. He sort of lifts him up by his arms when like in the key. It's so sweet. I love Vathek. Vathek is just a big softie, and I love him. Defend Vathek at all costs. The Oracle. See, like he's there. He's there. He exists. He's there. The Oracle doesn't do a huge amount in this show. He's sort of just there to be the quest giver. And I don't really like he doesn't I don't have an issue with him the way that I do in the comics because he doesn't do anything wrong in the show. We didn't really get far enough into the story for him to start going through his like problematic era. But he doesn't really do anything. He's just sort of there. But he does give Blunk the Tonga tooth. And he does clearly see something in Blunk. So we appreciate that because people should see the value in Blunk, and the Oracle does. So Principal Knickerbocker, I'm gonna give her B. She's funny. I love her voice. I love her kind of just her bumbling nature. She ate the fish what was it, or like the tuna fish pizza surprise or whatever it's chocolate chip pizza surprise. She ate the bad food that Blunk made, and she seemed to like it to start with, and then she spat out the second lot. But the first one she did seem to like, so I appreciate her. I like Knickerbocker. Peter, B tier. I feel like Peter in the comics is more of a kind of good guy, whereas not that he's a bad guy in the show, he's not, but he just seems to be a bit more on the kind of like he's a bit more of a himbo, is what I mean. He's a bit more of a himbo. Like, he looks at the older Cornelia and then like immediately walks into a pole. Like he has himbo energy. But he doesn't do anything wrong. He gets caught up in Cornelia and Caleb's relationship drama without meaning to. He's got no idea that he's wrapped up in relationship drama. He has no idea that he's involved in a love triangle. He's just being him, and he doesn't realize that he is causing the biggest chaos. And by kissing Lillian, which is older Cornelia, in case you didn't know, he does not go around kissing an 8-year-old child. By kissing Cornelia's older sister, he sets off just a chain of chaos for the rest of that episode. Just an unmitigated disaster for the remainder of F is for Facades. But he doesn't know that he's doing that because he's just there on a date with a girl that, as far as he knows, A, exists and B, is single. But of course, he's actually caught up in Cornelia's relationship drama. So, but overall, he's just a good guy. He never does anything wrong. He's just out there being himself, and he's a good brother. And Tarani literally says he's the best brother, so he's a good guy. Caleb, let's not even pretend. Caleb is, I mean, if we're going to do this, he is along here because Caleb is my favorite character. I would do anything for him. I think he is the funniest. He is noble. He has dedicated his life to freeing his world from oppression. And maybe I have a hero worship complex. I do have a hero worship complex. There's a reason why a lot, girls quite often go for like bad guys, like they like the bad guy character, whereas I always go for the most heroic character. I have a hero worship complex problem. Like in Supernatural, I'm a Sam girl because Sam is the nicer one. Whereas Dean's the more like rough around the edges one. I never liked Spike and Buffy. I prefer Angel. Like I am I never watched The Vampire Diaries, but I can almost guarantee I would be a Stefan girl if I did. I like Edward more than Jacob because Jacob is a creepy stalker and Edward watched her sleep, but at least she knew about it. I love the heroic characters and I think he is the epitome of a hero. And yes, he does have some girls have cooties energy in the first season because it's 2004 and that was the mood back then. That was just the way that we wrote stories for children back then, unfortunately. That's a product of the times, I would say, is what that is. But overall, as a character, he's a really good man, and I love. And the Stone of Three, he says to the girls that people do incredible things every day and don't have special powers. And that's one of my favorite lines in the entire series because I think it's really important for him to turn around and say to them, like, look, you are these magical guardians, but you can do incredible things without those powers. People do that every day. You can be your heroes with or without your guardian powers. And I just think he was just the girls' biggest fan. He wasn't at the very beginning, but he was their biggest fan. He stood by them through everything. He came to Will's swim competition from another planet. He was just their biggest supporter, their best friend, their big brother, an incredible boyfriend. He was an incredible friend to Blunk, to Aldarn, a leader to his men, a devoted um bodyguard slash like advisor to his queen. I love him with all my heart and soul. That's all I have to say. Chris Lair, again, annoying little child character, so I'm gonna say C. He's loud and irritating. Um, yeah, yeah. Blunk, Blunky Boo, S tier. I will eventually get round to making my video that I'm going to title In Defense of Blunk. I am I am Lauren the Blunk stan. I love Blunk so much. I think he is such a good character. I don't want to hear anyone tell me otherwise. He is he is heroic. He starts off as this like little scavenger and then develops because he wants to help save the world. And then in the final battle when he shows up and he's like, I'm a warrior. It is so good. It's so good. I love him. And then he gets the Tonga tooth, so then he becomes their way of like traversing worlds, and he's the one that can help them escape when things get rough. And he's a incredibly devoted friend. He loves his friends more than everything. Like he loves Caleb and the girls more than anything in the world. He is the best person to have in your corner. Like everyone should have a Blunk, but he is the hype squad, and he is precious. Look at his face. I'm sorry. How can you turn around and say you don't like this character? Look at this precious child. I love him. I would die for him. Blunk is absolutely everything. Cassidy. A tier. We don't get to see a huge amount of Cassidy, but like literally the little that we do get of her, particularly in Emma's for Mercy, made her one of the best characters in the series, in my opinion. And I would have loved to see more of her in season three because obviously she was alive again by the end of the series. I would have loved to see more of her. I would have given my right arm for a flashback episode where we could have seen what Chicken were like when they were teenagers. I would have given everything. It would have been so good. It would have been so good. But I loved her character. I thought she was wonderful. And she's so pretty. I love her to bits. Elion. A. So for when I was younger, I really didn't like Elion in the show. I had like a real problem with Elion, but as I've got older, she's actually grown on me a lot, and I really like her now. I think the problem with Elion is just the fact that like we never got a huge amount of her kind of at her best because I think she was at her best once she was no longer like in early season two, I think was when she was at her best, when she was being the queen. And then she got trapped in a jail and we lost her again for most of season two, and she only came back towards the end. And so I feel like we just didn't get as much of her at her best. But when she was at her best, I really liked her. And she is the captain of the Cornelia and Caleb ship, and we have her to thank for forcing Caleb to go to the ice rink and try and make amends with Cornelia. So the only reason I got my OTP back is because of her, so I have to love her. Elias Van Dahl, I don't know, like B? Like he only really does anything in that one episode. He's just in the background for the rest of the series, but he's like fine, I guess. He's a decent guy. Martin, A tier. My precious son. I love Martin so much. I love him more in the show than in the comics. I just think he's the sweetest boy. And I do agree that he probably shouldn't have sang to Irma over the radio because that's hell embarrassing. But, and much like his comic counterpart, someone needs to sit down with him and be like, you need to stop. You need to chill. You're being a pest. And you're making Irma frustrated with you. But at the same time, he is precious. And I think he does learn his lesson after that. Um, I think I really like the whole thing in Oath for Obedience where like Irma's deliberately trying not to hurt his feelings and then he comes out and says like I don't need your pity, and she's like, it's not pity, it's guilt, because we've been through a rough time lately and I didn't want to make you feel like a loser again. And he's like, no, no, we have a delicate balance of annoyance and rejection, no room for pity in there, or guilt. And I just love that whole scene, and it's like, yeah, I think what maybe I didn't realize is that I don't think Martin actually expects her to turn around and go out with him. I think he thought it was some kind of game that they had going. It is a delicate balance of annoyance and rejection. That is their relationship. And I think he's a sweetheart. He's a good guy. He's a good friend to everybody. I just love him. Tarani. Also an A tier, but like obviously towards the beginning. I love Tarani. I love her personality. I love, how kind of squirrely she is in season one, but she grows. And then I love her kind of struggling with her identity in season two is like a big thing for her character, which is a really nice storyline, especially for a character like Tarani, to try and figure out who she is. And, she doesn't want to be anonymous and she doesn't want to be just be known as the good girl, and kind of struggling with that idea of where she fits in the world. And if she's not a guardian, then what makes her special? And, she has her greatest fear is in failing in school, and she puts a huge amount of pressure on herself, and she's feisty and she's loving, and yeah, she's great. I loved Ronnie. Nigel. I guess B tier. Nigel doesn't really do anything wrong apart from tagging Tarani's initials on Old Man Sheffield. But at the same time, I'm like, you need to stop talking. Like, you're a freaking surfer, dude, man. You're in a band. And he's just like, oh, like his speech is so 90s teen sitcom. It's painful. And I'm like, we were in 2004. 2005 by the time they were like working on season two, I would imagine. And I'm like, why are you talking like that? And yeah, he's not the best, but he's not the worst. Napoleon, A tier. King, Ed Asner, hilarious, grumpy old man trapped in a cat's body. What's not to love? What is not to love? He's like Salem. He's basically the witch equivalent of Salem, and I love him. He's incredible, and honestly, the most depressing thing is the fact that if Witch did ever come back, we would need to recast him because Ed Asner's gone now, and that's a real shame. Chen and Joan, I guess B tier. I think they are obviously overprotective, but they're also, their child is like 12, 13 years old, so I suppose it's kind of to be expected. They don't get a huge amount of screen time, but they're like fine whenever they do. And I think it's really funny in the very last episode where Joan seems really excited about Yan Lin's secret twin sister, which is just very cute. Cornelia, okie dokie, right, come on. Cornelia is everything. I've already been through this in the comic part. I love her, and I love her even more in the show than I do in the comics. I love everything about her. She has taught me so much over the years about confidence and standing up for yourself and not being afraid to be who you are and to be vocal about how you feel. And um God, I just love her. I just love her. She is my queen. I I I look up to her so much, and she's hilarious, and she gives me all the feels, and she's got a real heart in her, and she's a good friend, and she has so much. She has so many layers, and I could go on for days. I just love her to bits. She is everything to me. My queen, my sun and stars. Kadma. Probably C because she's a bit of a cow. Like Kadma is has issues. Kadma's inability to accept that she's done anything wrong, Kadma's inability to take accountability for anything is very frustrating to watch. Yeah, Kadma has issues. She's a frustrating character, but I think she would have mellowed with time if we'd ever seen her again. Phobos. Let's be serious. Phobos is an A tier because like Phobos is so iconic, right? Like in the show, I know I just trashed him in the comics, but in this show, Phobos is iconic. He is such a good villain. He really is trying so hard. He comes up with so many different ways to try and ruin these girls' lives and doesn't manage, which is just hilarious. He has himbo energy as well. And then in the second season, he's so funny. Like that scene where he's like, "This cage is also beneath me, and above me, and around me." And then when he gets to be a teenager and he's like, am I not down with my bad self? He's so good. He's so fun to watch. He is chewing the scenery, and I love him. Phobos is an iconic villain. Well, I mean, Well is A tier. Like, I'm not gonna put Well in B tier, but she's probably my least favorite of the girls in the show. Um, I can't entirely articulate why. Probably just because she has a habit of doing things that I don't agree with. Like, I was in season one where she's so determined that they shouldn't tell Elion the truth about who she is, even though Cornelia is Elion's best friend, and she's explicitly saying that she thinks that they should. And then, of course, it turns out that Cornelia was right, and they should have, because not telling her made Elion think that they were keeping secrets from her, which made her more determined to leave and go to Meridian. And then she has that whole thing with her mom where she's just being really, really hostile about her mom being in a relationship with her teacher when and I get why it's awkward, but there was no need to just be the way that she was. It was just over the top. Although I think Susan should take some blame for that as well because she was obviously keeping that from Will, and she should have told Will the truth, but then Will was quite messed up about it. And then, of course, when her dad introduces Serena, she immediately assumes that he must be she must be a villain, which is the same thing that she did to Professor Collins in the first season. She just, every time her parents introduce a new partner, she's determined that they must be a demon that must be destroyed, and she just can't see past that issue that she has with her parents. Um, when she started going a bit like power crazy and like Q is for quarry, and just like not really thinking things through and kind of being like, yeah, I should be Elion's regent, even though she knows Elion the least out of all of the girls. Like, she's the least equipped to advise Elion on anything because she knows Elion the least and understands Elion the least. Um, but whatever. So I think that's maybe why. I think there's just quite a few times in the series where Will has done stuff where I just really don't agree with her. So she kind of ended up being my least favorite out of the five, but she's still a great character, so obviously she's still up here. Irma is also A tier. I mean, I love Irma. I have my issues with Irma. I think she can be quite mean. If you ask me, I actually think she's more mean than Cornelia. Cornelia has that like mean girl reputation, but I think over the course of the series, Irma has a habit of being more outwardly cruel to people. Um, I mean, she's always for obedience is like honestly difficult to watch because she's just being such a twat. And then she comes out and she's like, the thing that, yeah, the bit in the episode where she's like, I can't believe we had to leave my concert early. I'm just like, are you okay? What is wrong with you? What is wrong with you? It's one thing back in season one when it was still quite early on and Cornelia's like, oh, do we all have to leave the line for the Vance Michael Justin movie? Whereas in this, we're towards the end of season two, and one of your best friends has just found out that his mother is the same woman who's been trying to kill you, and he's went to confront her about it, and you're moaning about your concert. Irma, Irma. Plus the whole Martin thing, with calling him a loser, which I realized she didn't mean to do over the school intercom, but then like that was painful to watch, and there are times when I'm just like, Irma, can you stop being awful for like 5 minutes? But she is also the funniest character in the show. And when she's oh god, and G is for garbage, she treats Blunk awful in G is for garbage, and there is no need for it. Like, I get that she's annoyed that he put all that crap in her garage and it made her have to do extra chores. She doesn't need to be such a dick to him. And it's like, why is that? There was 3 separate episodes in season 2 dedicated to her being a shit person to her friends. G is for garbage, L is for loser, O is for obedience. And yet, for some reason, Cornelia has the reputation of being the mean girl in the group, even though there are 3 whole episodes dedicated to Irma being awful. Plus, Stolen Heart, where Cornelia actually calls out Irma and says you need to stop making jokes about stuff because, like, we're in a serious situation and you keep making jokes. Which, for some reason, the show tries to paint Cornelia as being the wrong for that, but, like, I also get what she's talking about because her best friend is like about to be turned into a black rose by Phobos, and Irma's just like making jokes, and I can understand why she was frustrated about that, even though the writing in the show clearly tries to portray it that Cornelia was in the wrong and Irma's in the right. But yeah, so I have my issues with Irma, but she's still hilarious, and when she isn't being a dickhead, she's usually a really good person. Halinor is like a C. Halinor doesn't do that's not Halinor doesn't really do anything. She's just sort of there. She doesn't get a lot of development, and she caves really easily to get taken over by Narissa, which is quite embarrassing. So Miranda, A tier villain. She's creepy. She turns into a giant spider. What more do you need to say? She's funny. She's devious. I love her. She's a creepy little queen, and we love her. Shagon, A tier villain. Shagon, I mean, he's an S tier villain, but is he an S tier character for me? No, probably not. But like, if this was just purely on like who's the best villain, Shagon is an S tier villain because he's so scary. He's so genuinely creepy and disturbing. He makes me feel uncomfortable even now as a grown woman. He has that voice, King Jason Marsden talking through some kind of voice distortion. Um, I love him. He is iconic. He is an iconic villain. He is one of the most enjoyable parts of season two. Shagon is incredible. very well written villain. And now my other queen, Narissa, A tier. I love Narissa as a character. She is, I mean, over here, she is one of my top five favorite characters in the show. I just love the complexity of Narissa. I have a Narissa playlist, and she's the only character in the show I have a playlist for other than Cornelia and Caleb. I have playlists for each of them individually and then a ship playlist, but Narissa is the only other character I made a playlist for because I'm so emotionally connected to this character. I love her whole story. She must have been good once. She was picked as a guardian, and then the power got to her head, so they gave the heart to Cassidy, and then when she tried to take it back, she blasted Cassidy off a cliff, and then she felt horrible about it for the rest of her life, and she got locked up. But then years of being locked away and dealing with the guilt for what she did and the resentment for Kandrakar for locking her up and for taking the heart away, and the more she spent away, the angrier she got, and then she came back and she wanted to take over the universe, and she seemed to genuinely believe that she could fix the corruption in the universe. And I want to do a video about my headcanons about Narissa because I have a whole bunch of thoughts about this, but the way I see it is that considering she started off as a guardian, I feel like she must have something in her that where she wants to make the world a better place because she was picked to be a hero, to be someone who's going to save the world. And I think that's why she genuinely believed if she united all the worlds under her rule, she could like stop all crime and create some kind of utopia. But of course, that's sort of that free will versus order thing where you can have full order and make everyone fall in line and there's no crime and no war and everyone's safe, but you've taken away everyone's free will, so no one actually has the ability to be a regular human being anymore because you're never going to be able to create a world where no one ever does anything bad. And so she's taken away everyone's free will to create a world where everyone is at peace, which might be a good thing on paper, but it's not really in practice. And she's so clever with her schemes. I mean, she really does play the long game, and she was cutting about as the mage and as Trill for years. She was working in Phobos's palace for years just to try and gather intel and to plot her revenge for when he was finally overthrown and she could start her clan. She is a fantastic character. Plus, she has the whole emotional weight of the fact that she was in a relationship with Cassidy and she killed her. And she still clearly loves Cassidy, but that's obviously a big issue. And she had a son who she loves, but he hates her because of who she is. And she wants Julian and Caleb to rule with her, but they would never go with her. And I think she's an incredible character. I think she is so layered and so complex, and I love her to bits. Cedric. I probably like Cedric more in the show, but not by much, but he is more entertaining in the show. So I'll give him B. Galgita. She's like a B again. Like she's a good person. She's a good woman. We like Galgita. Eric. B. I don't really have anything to say about these characters. I feel bad that I've got hardly anything to say about Cedric. Right, okay, let me talk about Cedric. Cedric, one, is, in my opinion, the most evil character in the show. I think he's more evil than Phobos. I don't think Cedric has a single piece of goodness in him. I think he is a 100% sinister, evil character. But that's not a bad thing. I think it's good to have a character who is just really, really evil. I don't think there's any good in him. And that's not to say he doesn't have people that he cares about. He obviously cares about Miranda, but it doesn't make him a good person because he's only protecting the people that he feels deserve it, and he doesn't even think Phobos deserves it by the looks of it. Um, I think he's creepy. I love his line delivery because D. Bradley Baker is an icon. He once says the line "a cup of tea and a rebel commando," which sends me every single time I hear it. I think he's a great villain, but I don't like. I'm not particularly fussy on him as a character, but I think he's a really good villain. Right. Eric is just like he's sweet. He's a sweet boy. I like him. He's played by wow. He's played by an actor that I like whose name escapes me, and I really like the way he does his lines. And he's really fun and S is for Self. S is for Self is such an episode. But overall, he doesn't get a huge amount of screen time, which is a real shame. So I'm not gonna rank him any higher than B. Uriah. Honestly, Uriah's an A tier. I really enjoy Uriah. I don't think he's a terrible person. He's obviously a brat and a prankster, but like overall, I think he does have a good side to him, and I think he probably is a better friend than he maybe comes across a lot of the time. He's definitely a lot nicer in the show than he is in the comics, and I actually like him. I find him entertaining. Alborn and Myriadel, A tier. I love these two so much because what I love about them is that they took Ellie onto Earth to protect her, and they're not her real parents. But they raised her as their own, and they genuinely loved her. And they went to prison, and all they wanted was to get out and get back to their daughter. And in season 2, when Elion gets trapped inside the jewel, the start of Chaos for Knowledge, when Mariadel is crying into Alborn, and Alborn goes like, "I need to get close to our daughter," and then he kind of pauses and he's like, "To the queen," and it's like, yeah, because it's even though she knows now that they're not her birth parents, they are her parents. They see her as their daughter, and they really, really love her. And I just think they're amazing. I think they're such good parents, and they stand up. They work with her and they advise her and they stand beside her through everything that she goes through in season 2, and I love them. I love Alborn and Murdo. Raythor! Mm, A tier, but like high A tier. I really love Raythor. I think he's a great character. I love that he turns on Phobos and joins the Guardians. I really love that. I would have loved to see more of him in season 3, getting to be a good guy because I really liked him. I've never figured out if his accent's meant to be Australian or Cockney. Somewhere in between. It's an interesting accent, but I love Raythor. Tom and Anna, B, but like high B tier. I'm gonna put them over here because they are really fun parents. They're really nice. They're good people. I really like them. They did a conga line. I mean, what's not to love? Matthew Olson, high S tier. One of my top five. I mean, this is my top five right here. This is my top five. Matt is an angel. Even in my Cornelia and Caleb video, I talked about how much I love Matt because like I love Matt. He is such a good guy. He is an angel. He is a supportive boyfriend, a good friend. He's even supportive to Lillian, who's his friend's little sister. He is the dream. There has never been a more perfect man who's ever existed. Everyone should have a Matt Olson in their life. He found the will to love, and he destroyed Shagon. An icon, a king. We love to see it. Susan Vandam. B, but like low B because I have issues with her parenting. Like I said earlier, like I do think there's issues with her like hiding her relationship with Collins from Will, and she's really hard on Will a lot of the time, and she clearly thinks that every time that something goes wrong in your life, the best thing to do is to pack up your life and move to a new city. And it's like maybe if you were like a bit better at like talking to your daughter about her problems, maybe you would know what's going on and not just think, oh well, Heatherfield's not working, let's move. Like maybe actually talk to Will and maybe you'll find out what's going on with her instead of just being like, no, I'm gonna move you away from all your friends. She's problematic, but screw it, never mind. She's high C, never mind low B. Susan has issues. And then Halen, obviously. S tier because again for all the same reasons that I said in the comic part. I love Helen. I love her attitude to life, her cheery, positive nature. She's artistic and she's fun and she's sweet and she's a good friend and she loves animals and she is the dream and I love her. And yeah, so that is my comic no, cartoon character tier list. And I think we've been doing this for a while, so I will stop here and say thank you for watching and I'll see you in the next one. Please, of course, leave me your opinions in the comment box below. Although if you're going to trash talk Blunk, then maybe don't. But do leave me your thoughts on my tier list, and I'll see you later. Bye, everyone.